All right, so this image that you see here was taken a handful of months ago. It's in the KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa, where Rob is from and where his Rotary Club is. And this is a delightful image for us because it shows some of the beneficiaries of the project that we're going to speak to you about today, called the 1,000 Survival Gardens Project. So this project brings together a number of organizations and Rotary clubs in South Africa and Canada with three core themes and inspiration in mind. And appropriately, this is, of course, Water Month, and it's one of the very key of all of this project is water security. And we'll talk about that, of course, shortly and why that's the case. So water security, water supply and security is a key theme here. A second key theme here is food security as well, which is why this is called a gardens project. And of course, to grow gardens, you need water, so that fits together nicely. The third inspiration / theme would be empowering women so that they can provide for their families and for their communities by extension. So this particular project is coming up to almost 2 years old. It is a COVID response project. It was noted when COVID began to break out around the world by the United Nations Food Agency that particular vulnerable places like sub-Saharan Africa were going to be quite hard hit by supply chain disruptions due to lockdowns, due to the economic disruption of lockdowns and so forth. And now that's happened internationally, but the UN Food Agency was particularly concerned about Africa and vulnerable areas in Africa, remote areas, particularly the less settled areas, because of the disruption for food supply and so forth. And as a result, they were worried that there would be multiple famines that would happen as a result unless immediate action was taken. And of course, with Hillcrest, our key partner club in South Africa, and other South African clubs that we've worked with through the Rotary Club of Winnipeg, we heard about a huge amount of demands for food relief parcels. The fact was, though, is that it was very quickly realized this was not sustainable. And not only not sustainable, but that it would create a dangerous cycle of dependency on these parcels. So our committee was founded amongst the various groups that I'll tell you who are involved shortly around the idea of providing a solution that would be based on a dignified and sustainable method to provide food for families. And in fact, to have families do it for themselves. So these are the members of the committee that you see here. From Rotary, we have the Rotary Club of Hillcrest, which is near Durban, South Africa. That's where Rob is from. Our Rotary Club of Winnipeg. Also, the Rotary Club of Gibsons, located in Gibsons, BC on the West Coast, is on the committee. And also in South Africa, the Rotary E Club of South Africa 1. Also joining our committee, directly and indirectly, is the Rolla Hippo Foundation, also based in Gibsons. The Wana Johnson Development Group, which is located in another province south of KwaZulu-Natal in the Eastern Cape Province. And also in Hillcrest itself, the Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust, which has been a key partner for many reasons, which we'll touch on a little bit later. So we all came together and we decided that to address the issue of water, we would champion this technology, this device, which is ingenious, called the Hippo Roller. Now, the Hippo Roller, as you can see, is a large tub. It is about 90 liters is what it holds in terms of volume of water. And it's designed in a very simple way so you can attach a handle to it. And it's essentially a wheel. And it works like a wheelbarrow. And it's produced in Johannesburg. It's made from this polyethylene, durable polyethylene, that, as I mentioned, can store a lot of water. It's a very simple idea and it changes lives, as it says in its slogan right there. And the lives that it's changing are the lives of women and girls who have traditionally had to do this. namely carry water on their heads in buckets and whatever other types of vessels they can take water in. So this is still a reality to this day in many parts of the world, in sub-Saharan Africa, and of course in South Africa, where if you want water for your daily needs, you have to go and source it and carry it back. You have to leave your homestead, you have to go to the water source, and then you have to come back and do this multiple times per day. And because men are off working in mines or doing whatever other economic activity they can do to generate income for their families, this falls to women and girls to do. It's time consuming, it's labor consuming, it keeps women away from their families, it keeps girls out of school. And at various times of the year, it could be the wet season where it's relatively easy to access water, or the dry season where you have to go deep into ravines like you see in the lower image there to get your water. So it could happen multiple times per day. It could happen great distances away from home, and the source of water will be variable throughout whatever season it may be. So the HIPAA roller helps to resolve that issue by making it easier to do this. You're not carrying a bucket on your head, so the physical trauma on your body accumulated over time is alleviated, and it does up to five times as much water as the traditional bucket. And you see how easily it works in the image on the left and the image on the right. You can see a woman who has the bucket wants to have one of those, and why shouldn't she? If it were you or I, that's what we would want to. And of course, the HIPAA roller can navigate, because it's like a wheel, it can navigate various types of terrain, whether it's relatively easy to get the water in the upper picture, or whether you're coming out of that ravine that we saw earlier from the lower picture. It comes apart easily, so you can stand it on its side and you can pour the water from the well into the roller and then drag it back up. So for this reason, we've championed the HIPAA roller. That's the first inspiration to resolve water concerns. The second inspiration comes from these wonderful ladies and many more like them. These are grandmothers. These are retired community workers. In the local Zulu of the Hillcrest region, they're referred to as go-go's. That's what grandmothers means. And they've been a very big inspiration in the Valley of a Thousand Hills, which is the area where Rob is. It's an area that runs between Durban and Pietermaritzburg for a number of kilometers, and is a very pretty area, very hilly, Thousand Hills. And so go-go's have been a huge inspiration going back to the days of the AIDS pandemic, which in Africa, epidemic in Africa, which has been going on since the 1990s, and then the Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust, which we mentioned earlier, or HACT. These go-go's have been recruited by HACT to act as surrogate mothers to orphan children. And these, of course, are children who have been orphaned due to the AIDS epidemic in South Africa, which is much more under control, but still a very high rates of incidence in that area. So the go-go's were basically taking on children who had been orphaned, who they would care for as if they were their own mothers. And one of the strategies that they came up with the help of HACT, was to do community gardens, to be given the tools and the implements to create food security for their orphans. And so this idea of doing community gardens is, of course, the second piece, the second inspiration, which comes from these go-go's. So with that, the idea we came up with was a survival garden kit. And it includes the items that you see here: a HIPAA roller, various gardening implements, shovels, rakes, hoes, watering cans, seeds and seedlings, of course, compost, fertilizer, a guide on how to grow a garden, and of course, because of the pandemic, soap, sanitizer, and face masks. So our goal with this project is the 1,000 of these kits to 1,000 women in remote communities in South Africa. It involves a lot of fundraising, but it involves a lot of help too on the ground. And that's where Rob comes in from the Rotary Club of Hillcrest. Rob will tell you a little bit more about the logistics on how we're doing it, where we're at, and where we see the path going forward. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Gary. Good evening, President Sheila. Good evening, everyone. Just to give you an indication of where we are, South Africa, the area outlined in red, that is our District 9370, and you'll see to the right, Durban and Rotary Club of Hillcrest, we're about 40 kilometers inland from that. When we launched the project, the district consists of approximately 90 clubs. You can see it also includes Lesotho, which is an inland-based country, if you like, but which is part of our district with the 2 Rotary clubs there. We invited the 90 clubs to participate in the project. Thank you, Gary. Basically, to apply for kits, to assist with funding where they could, and then to partner with NGOs, communities already engaged in community gardens, as we did with ACT for what it's worth, to ensure the sustainability of the project, if you like. We do insist that each beneficiary contributes 150 Rand towards the kit. Now, that's only $13, and you saw the cost of the kit is about 250. But this is very important for people to take ownership of the kit, to accept responsibility for it, and you know, to ensure that it's not just something they got for free and then just abuse or give away. The intention is also for clubs to monitor the progress through partners and do an evaluation. We've been very fortunate that we've garnered the support of a group called Build It. It's a national hardware dealership. They made a donation, cash donation towards the project, and they supply certain tools that we utilize. Of the tools, they supply us free of charge, which we're very, very grateful for. Thank you, Gary. To date, we've distributed 536 survival gardens kits. That's been throughout the district, as Gary indicated, primarily, of course, within our own immediate area. But as far as field as the Eastern Cape, Taweni, we've just sent some down to Port Alfred, which is what is known as the Eastern Cape, for those of you who might know South Africa. To an extent, the Free State, Welkom, Vicksburg, the Northwest Province, Klerksdorp, as you see there. At the moment, we are busy assembling another 64 kits and also some tools. There's an organization called the 8 Mile Club, who they do swimming and get funds in, and they are doing a distribution of some HEPA rollers, and we tagging on tools with that. So it's not just for water, but basically for people to obviously also plant their own gardens, etc. And we've got requests for well over 200 and more for what it's worth. We're only restricted by the funding that we can raise at any time. Thank you, Gary. This is a photo of one of the first kits we distributed to a family for a homestead garden in our KwaZulu-Natal area, and you can see the background, how hilly it is. That's what we call the Valley of 1,000 Hills. Thank you, Gary. These are some of the areas we've distributed here. Gary has mentioned the Hillcrest. I apologize, Gary. Gary mentioned the Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust, which we work very closely with. And if you look at the top left photo, that is a group of ladies from Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust who do their own community gardens. The lady third from the left, Candace, the tall lady, Candace Robinson, is actually a Canadian. She's a Canadian lady. She's the CEO of Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust, which was established many years ago by the Methodist Church. And they brought Candace out, and she's just done amazing things since she's taken over Hillcrest AIDS Center Trust. There's also 025 on the right-hand side, the center left, an ECD group, and the photo in the center on the right as well. Early Childhood Development Organization, who run a number of creches throughout KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, and they've started planting fruit and vegetables basically to feed the kids. The bottom left is Taweni distribution we did down in the Eastern Cape. And the produce that you see there was produced in Clarkstorp. And the girls at the bottom right is from the Pepili School, which is not too far from Hillcrest. Thanks, Gary. These are some of the testimonials we've got in. You can see in Dombi says the hippo roller is very useful. She uses it in the garden. Nondamisa says she enjoys doing the gardens now because of the hippo roller. And then Dewe says she uses it for exercise as well, and then also to irrigate her crops. So it's a multi-purpose for what it's worth. Irene has also, and we did hear of this, that a lot of the ladies put their washing in the hippo roller and then, when I say push it around to get the washing done, if you haven't got a washing machine. Anyone, we can gladly send you a hippo roller from South Africa. Bettina says she finds it helpful to store water, and even her grandchildren don't mind helping her in the garden now because of the hippo roller. And as you can see there, a neighbor wants one as well. Thanks very much, Gary.
Thank you, Rob. And so as you can see, we've touched a number of lives, a lot of lives, and there's been primary beneficiaries as a result and many secondary beneficiaries. It's thought that the hippo roller and the survival garden kit can support a family of up to 8. So there's a lot of people who have benefited from the project thus far, and we still have a ways to go. So we talked about the inspiration and the theme of water security. We talked about food security. The other inspiration that I touched on way earlier was empowering women. And women are front and center to this project. And that's why these images that you see here, you've seen throughout the presentation, all feature women. And women in South Africa do provide for their families. They have to do the day-to-day chores. They have to access the water. They have to make sure food's on the table. And so as a result, the very important component that we feel is a huge part of this project is to empower women, but also to allow girls to remain in school. And this is what the hippo roller does. And this is what survival gardens will do for families, hopefully for many years to come. Through this wonderful project, we come across a number of great partnerships in the communities. There's various organizations. I won't go through all of these here, but there's lots of organizations we partnered with. Faith-based organizations like Caritas in KwaZulu-Natal, the Catholic faith-based organization. CAST, which is the Church Alliance for Social Transformation, East Coast Lions 025, which Rob touched on earlier, and other like-minded groups, including Deep Rural, which is going to be offering not only, we're going to be supporting with not only survival garden kits, but we're going to be supporting 30 people in the Ananda Valley, which is broadly in the area of Durban. With not only survival garden kits, but training with a fellow named Rod Spencer, who's going to be leading a year-long project that has been in part funded by us, the Winnipeg Rotary Club, and other donors, and also the Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. The deep rural thing is important for us because it sort of points the way forward. The survival garden kits will be needed, but also what's needed are more projects that will then do training and creates all sorts of spin-off to make sure that this is a long-term sustainable project for the future and beyond. So another project that we're going to be engaging in with the Hillcrest Aid Center Trust is the Indelo project. This is going to be a global grant that we're working on. We're still seeking the final pieces of funding for it before we submit the application for this Rotary year. But it's going to be led up by HAT, Candace, that of course Rob mentioned earlier, the CEO of HAT, who's from Abbotsford, BC. They're proposing to work with 60 women, young women, in the Valley of 1,000 Hills to provide training in microagricultural techniques so they can set up businesses to provide vegetable and fruit seedlings for the community and beyond. So again, it's about empowering women and making this a sustainable thing. So I'll wrap up shortly. And what we do here with presentations like this throughout the district and other clubs such as yourself is we ask for your support. And we've had a long ongoing challenge now for over a year with the district of seeing if you can support us, whether you want to, as members or as a club, want to ask us, we're asking for at least one full survival garden kit, which is priced at about $250. That's the hippo roller and all the gardening implements and the seeds and so forth. And we're going to match that for the time being, and as long as we can afford to. And so we would be very grateful if you could support us with that. I have sent some information to Ron and about how you can do so, and I can send it again to you. There's some contacts there. There's myself and, of course, Strini Reddy, who's our Director of International Service. And with that, I thank you for your attention and can think of no better way but to show you this image of a group of women who have benefited from the project. And with that, thank you very much.